another cross-border raid into Russia as anti-Putin partisans increase attacks. The Kremlin on Thursday said it had utterly wiped out a cross-border raid into Russia's Belgorod Oblast. On Friday, partisans hit the same place for the second day in a row. Anti-Putin regime fighters launched more cross-border attacks into Russia on Friday as a campaign of partisan raiding against Russian border towns and settlements accelerated. In a video statement, spokesman from the pro-democracy Freedom of Russia Legion, Frol, took credit for morning attacks against Russian government troops stationed in and around the village of Novaya Tavolzhanka, some 3 kilometers on the Russian side of the international border, adjacent to Ukraine's northeastern Kharkiv region. Fighting was in progress in and around the village, and the freedom fighters had suffered moderate casualties. The wounded were evacuated to hospital. The Frol statement said, Novaya Tavolzhanka is in Russia's western Belgorod Oblast and adjacent to the town Shibakino, scene of a cross-border attack on Thursday. Anti-Kremlin fighters backed by tanks and armored infantry carriers hit the Russian border town Graveron, some 80 kilometers west of Novaya Tavolzhanka, on May 23. Russia's defense ministry on Thursday afternoon claimed local defense forces in Shibakino soundly defeated the anti-government fighters, killing more than 100 and putting the rest to flight. The Friday partisan raid against Novaya Tavolzhanka, backed by tanks and artillery, struck only a few hundred meters from where Russian army spokesman had claimed all anti-government fighters had been wiped out the day previously. Russian military telegram channels and official government media generally confirmed the fact of the Novaya Tavolzhanka border incursion. Pro-Russia journalist German Kulikovsky in his blog Starshii Eddy on Friday said 2 Ukrainian army tanks drove up to the border and opened fire on civilian buildings in Novaya Tavolzhanka, after which viruses anti-Putin infantry advanced on the town. The independent Russian news platform Astra on Friday said that a Ukrainian army artillery strike against the village of Maslova Pristan, about 15 kilometers inside Russia and less than 5 kilometers from Shibakino, killed 2 civilians and injured 2 more after shells hit near their automobiles. Regular army Ukrainian artillery using howitzer shells were targeting the road connecting Maslova Pristan and Shibakino, the report said. A report by the Kremlin operated art television channel claimed Ukrainian artillery hit a Russian border checkpoint near Maslova Pristan and showed images of smoke rising in the distance. Security troops had locked down roads leading to the towns, the report said. An ELF statement said the civilians died after Russian artillery incorrectly identified a Renault sedan for a military vehicle operated by anti-Putin fighters and destroyed it. Video published by the Elfray showed anti-Vermin infantry in a firefight and at times using grenades. Other images showed relaxed and smiling for infantry driving down a rural road aboard a B-2 armored personnel carrier. The Post claimed the vehicle was traveling in Belgorod Oblast. Russian officials, led by Belgorod Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov, have repeatedly painted the cross-border attacks as unimportant pinpricks easily handled by local defense forces, only to see the partisans launch a follow-up raid. On Friday, Gladkov in a statement said the Ukrainian shell strikes were continuing and Russian army units were moving to intercept the terrorists. Ukrainian government officials have denied Kiev has anything to do with the partisans, but that Ukraine supports a democratic Russian government and the goals of the anti-Putin fighters. Zelensky says Ukraine is ready for counteroffensive but currently faces a difficult choice. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, the Ukrainian president was confident but added, "We would like to have certain things, but we can't wait for months." President Zelensky has said Kyiv is ready for the long-awaited counteroffensive, but that we would like to have certain things in order to protect both Ukraine's soldiers and its civilians. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Zelensky said, "There's currently one weapon capable of stopping some types of missiles and rockets launched by the Russian Federation against our civilian population, our schools, infrastructure, and energy systems. The only system in the world is the Patriot." The U.S.-made air defense systems have been exceptionally busy in Ukraine in recent weeks, intercepting missiles and drones launched by Russia in almost nightly attacks on the capital, Kyiv. Despite very little damage being done at huge financial cost to Moscow, some analysts believe the Kremlin's tactic is to force Ukraine to choose between defending its cities or defending its troops when they launch the counteroffensive. It's not known exactly how many Patriot systems are currently in Ukraine or where they are all stationed, but Zelensky implied that with current supplies, it is not possible to do both. The reality is 50 Patriots will, for the most part, prevent people from dying, he said. Everyone knows perfectly well that any counteroffensive without air superiority is very dangerous. Despite the dilemma, Zelensky suggested the counteroffensive could begin soon. In my opinion, as of today, we are ready for it, he said. We would like to have certain things, but we can't wait for months. We strongly believe that we will succeed. I don't know how long it will take. To be honest, it can go a variety of ways, completely different. But we are going to do it, and we are ready. Kiev received its first shipments of the American-made Patriot surface-to-air missile system in April, and US President Joe Biden on Monday suggested more aid was to come. Zelensky has been on a recent diplomatic mission to secure more badly needed weapons and equipment from Ukraine's allies in recent weeks. This week, Ukraine and Moldova pressed European leaders for more support against Russian aggression as they staged a strategy summit on the continent's political frontline. Prime Minister Mark Rutte of the Netherlands called for more European allies to join his efforts to build a coalition to supply F-16 jets and Patriot missile batteries to Kiev. While a counteroffensive in the form of a large ground assault is still awaited, there are numerous signs that Ukraine has already begun preliminary operations to pave the way. Mihailo Podolyak, a senior advisor to the Ukrainian president, said last month that the tanks may not yet be rolling and Russian frontline positions aren't yet under direct assault, but a systematic campaign to degrade Russian defenses is already in progress. Weapons other than Patriot systems continue to make their way to Kiev. 2 consignments of weaponry from Sweden and Germany, respectively, are not in country yet, but according to many news reports will become available in the next few weeks. The German contribution, widespread reports from that country say, will be part of the allocated 110 Leopard I tanks. Crew training in Germany is nearing completion, according to Die Welt and other German mainstream platforms. A Cold War fighting vehicle with a good main armament, excellent optics, but thinner armor than the most modern tanks. The Leopard I fills a critical gap in the armed forces of Ukraine, AFU, assault capability. AFU, assault capability, a reliable tank able to blast Russian infantry out of its fortifications while offering fair levels of protection against Russian weapons. The international coalition supporting Ukraine has been relatively slow to send Ukraine tanks, and the first batch of Leopard I, according to many reports, a full battalion of 40 vehicles will arrive in Ukraine in the first weeks of June, just in time for the probable launch of the main ground assault. From Sweden, social media images and official statements from Stockholm have confirmed that 3 powerful weapon systems in sufficient quantities to equip a full Ukrainian combat brigade, tanks, artillery, and infantry fighting vehicles are currently being dispatched. Fully modern and in some aspects state-of-the-art, the 100 or so Swedish combat vehicles, including the CV-90 infantry fighting vehicle and Archer semi-automatic howitzer, will most likely make the Ukrainian formation operating them the best. Armed brigade on either side in the war. It's not clear how much training the Ukrainian army leadership will require before the unit is committed to combat, but AFU leadership already must be building the Swedish weapons arrival into its counteroffensive plans and timelines. Counteroffensive on track despite Russian missile barrages, Ukrainian defense official. Ukraine's plans for a counteroffensive against Russian occupation remain on track, its deputy defense minister told Reuters on Saturday, despite an unprecedented wave of missile and drone attacks across the country in recent weeks. Volodymyr V. Havrilov said that alongside cruise missile strikes, Ukraine had faced repeated volleys of ballistic missiles in May, especially in urban centers including the capital, Kyiv. Their primary goal is to stop our counteroffensive and target decision-making centers, he said on the sidelines of Asia's top security conference, the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. Havrilov called Russia's heavy use of ballistic missiles in May a last strategic resort, and noted that his country's air defense systems had been more than 90% effective against the attacks. For Russia, it was a huge surprise to find that the effectiveness of their ballistic missiles was almost zero against modern air defense systems, which we received from our partners, he said. The United States and Germany provided Ukraine advanced Patriot missile batteries this year. Ukraine had already received advanced shorter-range systems such as NASAMS and IRIS from Western partners. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Saturday his country was ready to launch a much-awaited counteroffensive. Havrilov said the missile barrages had not affected the timing. Nothing can stop our efforts, our desire, and our confidence that we'll win this war, he said. Ukraine will start the counter-offensive with the ambition to liberate our territories this year, he added. Moscow calls the invasion, which began in February 2022, a special operation. Havrilov declined to comment about recent drone attacks and border incursions into Russian territory, including some strikes that reached near Moscow. Russia, have a lot of internal events that are, of course, linked to this war, he said. We have a lot of people inside Russia who support Ukraine. The two countries have accused each other of spreading terror in their respective capitals with airstrikes. Havrilov, who joined defense and military officials from all over the world at the Singapore meeting, said Ukraine expects NATO allies to provide a detailed roadmap to membership at the Defense Pact summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, next month. We want to see a clear set of steps to be taken by both sides, he said, not just an indication that the door is open. He added that Ukraine also expected guarantees of security to be provided while the country is in a transition period on the way to membership. He dismissed a proposal by Indonesia's defense minister at the Singapore meetings to establish a demilitarized zone to halt the fighting in Ukraine, saying, "We are not going to negotiate any deal related to loss of our territory, including Crimea." Havrilov praised the recent supply of British Storm Shadow cruise missiles, which British Defense Minister Ben Wallace said on Friday had not missed any targets Ukraine had attacked. The addition of modern fighter aircraft such as F-16s would improve the country's air defense capabilities, Havrilov said. He said he could not comment on whether ground-launched small-diameter bomb, another long-range strike weapon Western allies have provided this year, had been used in combat yet. Ukraine has had good meetings and discussions with many countries, including Asian nations. At the Shangri-La Dialogue, Havrilov said, "We want to engage with everybody," he said. Zelensky says Ukraine ready to launch counteroffensive. Ukraine is ready to launch its long-awaited counteroffensive to recapture Russian-occupied territory, President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview published on Saturday. "We strongly believe that we will succeed," Zelensky told the Wall Street Journal. "I don't know how long it will take. To be honest, it can go a variety of ways completely different. But we are going to do it, and we are ready." Kiev hopes a counteroffensive to reclaim territory will change the dynamics of the war that has raged since Russia invaded its smaller neighbor 15 months ago. Zelensky said last month Ukraine needed to wait for more Western armored vehicles arrived before launching the counteroffensive. He has been on a diplomatic push to maintain Western support, seeking more military aid and weapons, which is key for Ukraine to succeed in its plans. Russia holds swaths of Ukrainian territory in the east, south, and southeast. A long spell of dry weather in some parts of Ukraine has driven anticipation that the counteroffensive might be imminent. Over the past several weeks, Ukraine has increased its strikes on Russian ammunition depots and logistical routes. On Saturday, Ukraine's military said in a daily report that Marianka in the Donetsk region in the east was the focus of fighting. Ukrainian forces repelled all 14 Russian troops' attacks there, the report said.